Hi, it's Sean again. This is day 2 of, I guess, my journey into becoming a better person and kind of recovering from some traumatic events that have kind of happened to me. Some probably not so recent, and some that have kind of happened over the course of the past year. I know 2025 has probably not been the best year for a lot of people. And I feel like maybe a lot of people are probably going to need more therapy about everything that's kind of happened so far this year, not just with the personal stuff, but everything that's going on in the world. Like, it just seems like it's a very hectic environment just across the board. So yesterday was, I wouldn't say a difficult day at work. It was okay. It was very boring. I was in a class that, they're kind of just reading off like PowerPoints and stuff like that and kind of going over the same slides that you can read in front of you. So that was probably a very slow start to the day, which kind of just made the day seem like it was so much longer, which probably didn't help anything. One of the big things that I kind of pulled out of yesterday was the feeling of being lonely and isolated. And I'm more or less isolating myself, and I just think it's me not wanting to maybe put that on someone or stress someone else out, or offload onto someone, which is probably not healthy. But I also don't want to become super busy to where I'm not dealing with my feelings and dealing with the emotions and all that stuff. So I guess it's kind of, I'm having a hard time with the balancing act of how to address all these feelings. So that was kind of yesterday morning. Last night, the ex and I were kind of talking through text, and she was saying stuff that I honestly felt like was more of a in-person conversation, because I think that there's a lot of stuff that can kind of go miss through text, or you kind of can't convey the message that you're actually trying to convey. Plus, I didn't really want to interpret anything incorrectly, so I ended up going over to her house, and we talked for probably about 20-25 minutes. There was good stuff that came out of that conversation that I will say, as a guy, I was completely oblivious to. And I don't know if that's just because guys are, in general, probably not as emotionally intelligent as women are, or more in touch with their feelings. Guys, we have a tendency to not express feelings, let alone actually feel them sometimes. So that was kind of good that we had that conversation. And I did kind of ask, I didn't ask. So we did kind of talk about everything that kind of happened over the past year. And what it really kind of boils down to is, unfortunately, what probably really happened is probably about 2-ish years ago, I think, about the time that we moved into this house in Monument, we started drifting apart due to the stress of the new place, everything going on, at our jobs. She had taken a promotion about a year before I had, and then I kind of caught up with the promotion. And I think that was around the time that we kind of started losing each other as far as who we were ourselves. And then we kind of just started thinking, well, I know for a fact that I wanted to be a certain way because I felt that that's what was needed, but it wasn't necessarily what was actually needed. Something else was needed. And then she felt that the expectations that were on her, or what she kind of thought everyone else thought she needed to be, was kind of what she started to be. which is where she kind of lost all sense of herself. So that was kind of a good conversation to have about that. Not for any other reason other than like it helps us both be kind of better people. The one thing that unfortunately did kind of come out of it, and the fortunate thing at the same time, was it sounds like there is no real reconciliation that's going to happen between the two of us, which for me initially was extremely tough to kind of deal with, mainly because for the last 7-8 years she's been a huge part of my life, and her 2 kids from her previous marriage have been part of my life. But unfortunately, in my effort to kind of protect everyone from my stress, I ended up giving them a different kind of stress, which didn't help. But I think the biggest portion was we hit that spot in the marriage where instead of working on each other and working on ourselves and like falling back in love with each other, we just kind of got into this groove, and we stuck in that groove, and we just kind of lost sight of each other and lost sight of ourselves. Which I know I've lost sight of myself because I have done less and less stuff on my own over the past 4 or 5 years. And I think a lot of that comes from feeling like if I leave her at the house with the kids by herself, that not that she's not going to be able to handle it, but it feels like I'm just abandoning her, which, I mean, is not fair to put on myself or her, because she's 100% capable of doing anything she puts her mind to. But that kind of prevented me from going out and doing my own thing. And I maybe that kind of like had the same effect on her, because she didn't go out as much as either, like even like just to go hang out with her girls, like her girlfriends and everything. So I think that was really part of it, is we just kind of fell out of love because of that whole, as you get through the marriage, you have to work to stay in love, or like find new ways to show that you're in love, which we didn't have the energy or ability to, because I think that just wasn't in the cards for us. The one thing I will say that kind of another positive that I would take out of this is we haven't had a conversation this serious in person in probably forever. I mean, we've talked since I've come back from California and gotten out of the hospital, but it was nice to have an actual sit-down conversation, which after having the whole entire conversation, it kind of gave me, I guess, that closure to say goodbye to us. Not goodbye to her as a person, but goodbye to us. She will forever be part of my life, and I will honestly probably forever love her until something happens or I let go. But she will always be like the mother of my children. She will always be like a part of me that, while we are going through a very difficult time, she will always just be that person that has been part of my life. One of the things that I've been trying to do to kind of work on myself is, I think another thing that I've kind of struggled with is my weight has kind of been steadily heavier than I've ever wanted to be. So I've actually started working out more, at least more consistently. I actually did the Manitou Incline, which for anyone that lives in Colorado Springs probably knows exactly what that is, but it's basically you go up a mile and you go up 2,000 feet in basically a mile, about 2,781 steps, I believe is the exact count. Biggest problem for me that I have is I am fairly short, and most of my height that I do have is actually in my torso, not in my legs. So every time I go up a step, it's like doing a full lunge, which has always kind of sucked. But in all honesty, like I felt good. after it was all done. And I think that's kind of this whole like path to getting back onto looking out for myself, not necessarily not looking out for anybody else, but kind of getting into that habit of I have to have some sort of self-worth that I kind of let go. Maybe because I felt like I just needed to be there more for everybody else than I was ever for myself, which is obviously not healthy, but I think that's honestly just kind of where my mind kind of floated to. And I think honestly it was a gradual thing about where I kind of was there for everybody else except for myself. I just kind of gradually kind of started losing, looking out for myself and doing stuff that I needed to do, which is unfortunate because it's really hard to love someone else when you don't love yourself, I guess. And I think that's probably one of the bigger things I'm going to take out of this entire process is that I need to love myself before I can learn to love someone else. And at a certain point, I just wasn't loving anything. I was barely loving myself. I was struggling to make heads or tails of anything. So it was just kind of, it was difficult. But yeah, now it's just kind of getting into all these better habits that I'm going to have to get into over the course of the, forever, I guess. One of the things that I've always kind of struggled with is my sleep is really terrible. My eating habits are probably the worst that kind of really exist for anyone. I will say I rarely eat breakfast or lunch. So usually most of the times the only thing I might eat in the morning is maybe like a yogurt, but then all the other times, unless I go out to lunch with like a buddy from work, the only time that I'll actually eat is probably from dinner, which, oh God, that's probably, that would be nice if I was actually intermittent fasting on purpose, but I don't think I have the capacity to do that. I think my body requires a little bit more energy. I think when I was eating 3-ish meals a day, and like they don't have to be like huge, I was doing energy-wise like much better. So that's something I'm definitely going to be trying to work on. I think it's just like now trying to find small meals for a single person. So if anybody has like anything that they kind of is their go-to, that would be kind of like, I guess, useful for me. I've always kind of stuck to like more sandwiches or like, college stuff like hot dogs or pizza and stuff like that, which I don't necessarily want to do that. I'm too old to kind of do that. I mean, yes, I'm only 39. My body feels like it's like 50 or 60 sometimes. And part of that's probably from the military, but I think most of it's really just from like not taking care of myself like at all, which is stupid because I have a like fairly expansive gym downstairs in our basement, but I think just getting into the habit was something I was lacking the ability to do, I guess. I don't know if it's the ability or just the desire. It's something. So, yeah, I mean, day 2, this is going into day 2 because I'm actually shooting these videos at 6 o'clock in the morning, which I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but this is when I have, I wouldn't say free time to myself because I have free time at any time when I'm at home, but this is when my brain is the most focused, which maybe from yesterday's video that might have not have been very clear, but my brain tends to work better in the morning than it does later in the day, which I'm definitely gonna have to work on, like kind of keeping a steady state on my energy levels to kind of make sure that that's not like the issue, because that's not going to be healthy if I come home and, when I have my son and I'm exhausted because I didn't eat anything, and then I just start gorging myself and then I don't really eat a dinner. So I'll have to definitely concentrate on doing smaller stuff. I probably will start baking bread again. But I think until I move, I think I'm actually just going to buy bread. Just because at this point, I'm really just looking forward to getting out of the house that we have and renting it out to whoever, which I don't even know how that works, but I'm hoping that that goes. That's like a pretty easy process. I've never gone through something similar to doing that, so if that's like a super easy process, that would be great. I guess I'm just like not counting on it because of the fact that I've never done something like that. So that's going to be something I'll probably will be like one big relief. Because living in this house, which is pretty big by myself, it's not good. Like I don't like it at all. It honestly just makes me upset. Plus, I feel like more isolated than normal. I don't like really talk to our neighbors or anything like that, but I'm just more isolated, and I think getting into a smaller place that's closer to, not necessarily closer to more people, but where the environment's a little bit different might kind of push me out of my shell to kind of start being me again, or start, kind of having some sort of like sense of self and purpose outside of, just my kid and work. Because like right now, that's all I kind of have. These videos I think are helping, but there's got to be more is what I need to do. So, I think this is probably going to be a shorter one today. I don't necessarily have a whole lot on my mind this morning. Yesterday, I think, was like a very big first step. I'm kind of looking forward to getting into therapy pretty heavy. I still have to, I guess, select my therapist, which my friend kind of helped me figure out people that probably needs to be like that type of person. So I'm kind of looking forward to that and seeing how much I can unpack and kind of be on the path to just a better person. So I'm gonna call this one today. Just as a reminder for everyone, you're not alone. I know sometimes it definitely feels like it. I mean, I definitely feel like it sometimes, but I just reached for the phone and text someone and asked like, hey, can you just talk about like anything at this point? Like, dude, it could be about 3D printed keychains, or one of the latest video games coming out, or, traffic or something. Like, I think just anything to kind of pull you out of like that self-pity, which is where I'm sitting, is going to be helpful. So just kind of keep your heads up. I know it's kind of difficult, and trust me, I've been there. But don't be afraid to ask for help from anyone. And please communicate with anyone that you're close to, because nobody really knows what you're going through unless you say something. So have a good one.